Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Kelly Stewart, joined by Marco D'Angelo and Tony Finn. All right, guys, we're previewing the top 25 today. Let's go to number 4, Georgia. Marco, I'll start with you.
Kelly, you look at this team, and this is the wise guy team. They're getting a lot of love from the wise guys. To win the national championship, they're down to plus 600 for the national championship. Season win totals sitting at 11. They're a team that returns 6 offensive starters, 7 defensive starters. Let's start with the fact that they did lose some key skill personnel. But those 6 starters on offense that are coming back, start with the quarterback. It's Jake Fromm. This is a guy that is 23-5 as a starter at Georgia. Look at the offensive line. They bring back 4 on that O-line. This might be the best offensive line in college football this year. That is going to be, head and shoulders, gives them a head start, even with having to break in some other skill players. Again, it goes to the system. And then you look at this team. Georgia last year, they had 11 freshmen or sophomores start. So now get that experience as good as they were last year, and you've got that many players that got that kind of experience that are in the returning core. I like this Georgia team a lot, and that defense last year was the number 2 defense in the SEC. They're going to be just as strong this year. I think we're on a collision course for Alabama. Georgia
SEC championship game.
Now they did lose 3 games last year. And the one thing that I want to point out, they had the loss in the middle of the season to LSU. That was a legitimate loss, and they got beat up by LSU. But the final 2 games they lost the same game twice.
Yes, they did.
They lost the SEC championship game to Alabama in a gut-wrenching fashion. They dominated that game almost the entire game, and Alabama pulled it out. Jalen Hurts come in, saved the day for Alabama. And then when they went to the bowl game, they were this close to playing in the national championship playoffs and had it taken away from them.
And that's a scenario we talk about all the time. That soul-crusher game before, so always kind of keep an eye out for those spots.
So throw the last game of the season out. This is a team that lost 3 games that was much better than a team that's looking at a record with 3 losses last season.
Tony, give me your thoughts. Do you agree with Marco? Do you disagree with some things that Marco said? Your thoughts on the Georgia Bulldogs?
No, I agree with a lot with what Marco said, and I'll throw in the fact that there's not a huge difference. I mean, Kirby Smart is building this program to a level that is close to, as far as recruiting goes, Alabama. His recruiting classes in the last 2 years just are head and shoulders better than anyone outside of a Clemson or Alabama. And as Marco mentioned, some of those young kids that were playing are now a year older, and this incoming freshman class, if he gets any contribution from 1 or 2 of those skilled players, then Georgia winning the SEC would be absolutely no surprise to me.
Okay, Marco, do you have anything you'd like to finish up with?
No, this is a team on defense. Georgia brings back 4 of its top 5 tacklers from last year's defense, and we saw how good that defense was last year. I think this is a complete team.
Yeah. All right, Tony, Marco mentioned Georgia down to 6-1, some places here in town. Do you think that's worth the bet? Are we late to the party?
No, I'd say worth is a subjective. It's fairly subjective, but I will say this: it doesn't surprise me because these are the 2 teams we're talking about. Whoever graduates from the SEC championship game is going to be much less than that anyway. And the point is this: whoever does win that championship game is likely to be either a pick'em or the favorite against who they're playing.
For me, Kelly, I think we missed the boat on the 6-1.
Yeah.
For me, what I would do is start my manual parlay in the SEC championship game because of name, if they line up against Alabama, they're going to be the underdog. So you're going to get a money line price with them there. And then if they do get to the national championship game and it happens to be Clemson,
they'll be an
underdog
again.
There. And I think you roll it over, you're going to get more than a 6.
All right, makes great sense to me. Thank you, guys. Don't forget that any 5% best bet at WagerTalk.com is backed by our 150% wager buck guarantee. That means you will get 150% back of the purchase price in credit.
Go Bulldogs.